Is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom a good game? Well, yeah, it's a Zelda game. Of course it is. Ahoy, SAXY fans, and welcome back to the channel. Now that I've completed The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, I figured now is as good a time as any to make a mini review about the game. I'm not going to go too in-depth on the details of the game, and I won't be spoiling anything, but I did want to highlight a few things that stood out to me while I was playing. In this case, lots of good stuff, some interesting stuff that is also good, but in general for these reviews I'll also include anything that I find less than stellar. Let's begin with the gameplay. This is the most important part of any game because if it's not fun to play, then why would you play it? Thankfully, Echoes of Wisdom continues the long-standing tradition of Zelda games being fun to play. The focus of this game is the Echoes mechanic. This allows for a lot of customization and creativity because there are 127 different echoes to utilize, both for exploration and for combat. These echoes are items and enemies that you find throughout the world, and you can make copies or echoes of them to help you overcome obstacles in your path. And you have a lot of different ways to approach those obstacles. Additionally, with an open world, the game gives you the ability to go wherever you want to do, provided you have the means to do so with the different echoes that you have at your disposal. This means that if you want to go straight for the main story, you absolutely can. Alternatively, if you want to see every single inch of the map before you enter the next objective, you certainly can try. This also provides a lot of replayability, since you can try using different echoes or decide what you want to prioritize if you play through the game again. You have the freedom to play this game however you want to. Another thing that this game provided me was a feeling of nostalgia, and that may seem odd considering that this is a new game, but I feel it did a great job of appealing to fans of the series like myself. Most of the enemies that you find throughout the world, they're enemies that we've seen before in other Zelda games at some time or another. The interesting thing is that if you're like me, you might not have known what all of those enemies are actually named. Like, this is a plat boom. Okay, I suppose it's a platform that goes boom. This is a Borblin, but I've always thought it was just another Moblin, so that was weird to see it called something else. And what the heck is this? They call it a zero? Zero? I don't know. I always call it the flying mushroom that craps out bombs. But the thing is, I still recognize them from previous games. I knew what they were, and that provided me that sense of nostalgia. Oh yeah, I remember that enemy. What are they going to be doing in this game? Oh, they're making bombs again. The other piece of nostalgia for me was the overworld, which takes a lot of references from A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. Now, it's not a one-for-one copy like those two games were of each other, but if you're a veteran of the series, and in particular those two games, there's going to be some structures and some landmarks that will remind you of those games and stand out because they're in about the same location as they were in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. I found that to be really cool, and it did provide that sense of nostalgia. With all of that familiarity, though, there is enough different to make this feel like a new Zelda game. For starters, and most importantly, is the fact that you are playing as Princess Zelda and not Link for the first time in this series. Unless you count these two games, which you shouldn't, because they're bad. Being Princess Zelda provides a different perspective to the game. Link, historically, has been some unknown swordsman or maybe a folk hero of the town that he grew up in. So he's familiar with swords, he's familiar with different tools that aid him in combat. Zelda is completely different. She doesn't have the sword training or combat prowess that Link does. She instead has the wisdom that she's gained being a future ruler of Hyrule. This means that the focus is less on combat and more on solving puzzles using the echoes at her disposal. This doesn't mean that there isn't any combat, because there is quite a bit of that still. And the result is that bosses provide a very fun challenge with multiple ways to tackle them based on what echoes you're trying to use. This once again gives you that freedom on how you want to progress, and it's been eye-opening to me to look at YouTube videos that show different strategies for defeating these bosses, because the way that I did it wasn't always the most efficient, but I was still able to persevere using the echoes and my knowledge of how to use them to get past the boss and on to the next part of the game. And I still felt very accomplished for finishing the way that I wanted to play. Overall, Echoes of Wisdom is a very fun game with a wonderful mix of nostalgia and new. Whether you're a longtime fan of the Zelda series, or if you're trying it for the first time, I highly recommend playing this game. The only thing to mention is that if you are new to the Zelda franchise, it's not necessarily the best representation of what all Zelda games are like. This doesn't mean that the other games are bad, far from it. They're all very, very good, but it is worth it to keep an open mind when you're moving to older games in the series, because Link is completely different from Zelda. I personally have Echoes of Wisdom ranked number 4 in my Zelda rankings, which, considering there are now 20 games in the series, if you don't count these 3, which you shouldn't because they're bad, number 4 is really, really good. Hence why I highly recommend playing this game. Thank you all for watching and listening to my thoughts and ramblings on this wonderful game. Please like, subscribe if you haven't, share with your friends, or your enemies, I guess, whoever you want, and leave a comment below. Have you played Echoes of Wisdom? What are your thoughts? If you haven't, are you planning to do so? And if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see on this channel going forward, let me know that in the comments as well. You can see what I have planned currently for the next few months, and if you have any particular recommendations for winter-themed music, please let me know, because I have some ideas, but I really appreciate your feedback, and having your suggestions in my back pocket will help me to come up with more ideas for the future. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.